how you doing? My name is Pinky Ghelani. You are watching Pinky TV. This is What Women Want, and if you're watching on Facebook, make sure you leave a comment and let us know where you're watching from. If you are watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to get more episodes like this, more conversations rather, to be privy to more conversations like this. These conversations are brought to you by SBM Bank, and we are filming at Gem Suites in Nairobi, Kenya. I love this job because of the people that I get to interact with. Today I'm joined by Krishma.
Correct.
Chavda.
Yes.
That's right, yeah. The popular name with the Indians is Krishma. So apologies, I know you are Krishma. So our theme this season is unlearn. And in the past, we've always introduced our guests, but I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself. I know it's something that's a bit unnerving for people who are not too used to it. So maybe you can just tell us what you do.
So, Pinky, I'm a therapist, a very unconventional therapist. I practice NLP, CBT, hypnosis, life coaching, and I work with a partner who does bioresonance, and we use a lot of technology in terms of how to help the body. So we basically offer holistic solutions, tailored to individuals, to help deal with the mind-body connection, basically.
I love it. I think it's so important. I think our health is our wealth in 2021. If 2020 taught us anything, it's that it should be a priority and that we should focus on, conventional or unconventional ways of healing ourselves. Why is it important, Krishma, to heal yourself?
I think a lot of people don't realize that when you don't heal your mind or events that have happened to you in your life, they will manifest into your body one way or the other, Your body has a way of logging, I feel, every event, every experience that you have ever been through. So it's from that respect that we feel that the source of everything is the mind. Situations happen to different people, but whether they suffer the situation or just experience it are two different things. Wow. And I think it's really important that if somebody is going through any kind of trauma, and it doesn't have to be trauma based on what people call trauma. It could be something very small, but if you feel that it's left a mark on you, it's very important to deal with it, because that mark has been logged somewhere in your system, Your DNA, I feel, is an archive of everything you have ever been through and everything your genetics have ever been through. So it's important that we look at it holistically for health to happen, because health isn't just about your body, it's not just about your mind, it's about how you're experiencing this process of life, really. There's a lot of people who are very healthy, but they can't experience life. For example, look at people who are going through substance abuse. They spend the better part of their life, despite being healthy, avoiding the process of life, So are they healthy? Yes, maybe, maybe not. So it's important that we look at health in a different light now, It's about, can you experience what life is really offering you?
So what I understand there is that any trauma, any event that has affected you will manifest into some form of illness.
Not necessarily illness, but it will manifest as something, whether it is an illness, whether it's just a breakout. I mean, if I give you my example, which is interesting. So I was having a conversation with somebody one day, and she told me about an event, and by the time I went home, my ear had packed up, and I'd noticed this previously, that when something touched me, good or bad, I would feel it very quickly in my body. And I had to call in a colleague who had to come and give me a session just so that my ear would open up and I could hear again. And, my skin broke out, and I realized that day that how quickly it happens in people is what's different. But inevitably, somewhere it will manifest. And we've had that experience with so many guests, so many clients actually, not guests, where they come in for a physical issue that, they're trying to just find a coping mechanism for the constant pain. But after a few sessions, they find that the pain is gone, that there is no issue. really, that, you know. So it's been an interesting journey for us where the definition has changed because of our experience with people and what it can do.
I know the reason that, you know, you and I have crossed paths is, one, because of my mum. My mum, who's in in a wheelchair, had a stroke and is aphasic. Can you just tell me a little bit about, you know, because she's my mum, and I saw a difference when she came to you, but what is it that you did with her that managed, you know, a small change? Because for 5 years there was no change, but then after seeing you for a few times, there was small shifts within her.
So one of the thing about us being unconventional is I had no problem in calling you up and saying, Pinky, I think we can do something. And so the most important thing for me when I called you about your mom was, when somebody is in that situation where they're not speaking, you know, where their mobility is very limited, is they will still carry on experiencing their past. They still carry on experiencing what is happening to them on a day-to-day basis, but they just have no outlet, no expression. And it's very, very important that for people like that, especially at a certain age where you know that they're going into the last leg of their life, it's very important to deal with it. So my agenda for her was to have her make peace with whatever her past was, you know. Of course, usually we would never discuss clients,
yes,
you know, but because you've brought it up, it's okay to discuss it. So because of events in her life, you know, it's almost like selective mutism that she's gone through.
Wow.
Because after the second session, she did tell me what she had for breakfast, you know. The help that was there was very excited,
Yeah.
you know. And I actually, you know, we got her to let go of a lot of things because she did need to say it. But, you know, we come from a social scape, come from a cultural scape that doesn't always allow us expression, you know. And I think somewhere that had an impact on her too, like, you know, I'm not to talk about it, you know, it's not my place to talk about it. As a mother, again, I feel being, you know, breaking down or talking about I can't do this anymore is a luxury not a lot of parents have, you know, especially mothers, I feel, because you're constantly looking at what the impact of you breaking down is, but that doesn't change what's happening in your system. So we did a few processes. Actually, with her, it was interesting because when we spoke, she sort of came in and she lit up after the second or the third time, you know. And first she would start with na na na, and I was like, we're not moving from here until you tell me in words, you know. And at the end of the day, a lot of it was just anger, you know. And I think when she processed it and when she says, right, I forgive you, and she said it in words, you know, to whatever it was directed towards, I saw a shift, you know. It was the first time, because we'd gone through this in the sessions where we had asked her to close her eyes. And she wouldn't be able to close her eyes for more than a few seconds. You know, it was always like open. Mm-hmm. But I remember, and I made a note of it in my notes, when she said, I forgive you for leaving, you know, she just sat there with her eyes closed. And I thought, right, you know, now it's great, you know, if we can get it to speak. But for us, the priority was just drop your baggage because you don't want to take it on, you know, regardless of where it goes.
And that's the thing, Krishma, when it comes to baggage or issues, you know, for me, she's my mother, but that generation as well, you know, I have to be strong. I can't show weakness. I can't show that I'm mourning, or I can only mourn for so long. I need to get on with life. And I remember Mum would always say to me, I need to get on. You know, the one thing about life is life goes on. So what is this about therapy that's taboo? Why are we afraid to help ourselves?
I think it's just that in therapy you meet the one person you really have been avoiding all your life, isn't it? You meet yourself.
Yeah.
You know, it's this one person who you've been shutting out all your life, maybe lying to all your life. But when you're sitting in therapy, you got to meet this one person. And I think that scares a lot of people, because when you say, I would get therapy, somewhere a part of you knows you're going to keep the buck with you now, you know. It's an opportunity to absolutely process so many things, but I think it's just scary because we're so used to this concept of just shove it under the carpet. But when you go for therapy, you know somewhere, you know, that we're going to talk about things that I don't want to talk about, you know. It's very interesting. I have one client, and she says she blanks out completely as the session is approaching.
Wow.
She can feel a difference in how her body feels as the session is nearing. And then after the session, she's like, oh, I feel so much better now.
Right.
But yes, there's a part of you that knows I'm going to have to deal with things I don't really want to deal with.
Yeah. And then the support around it as well. You know, there's not a lot of people who support, yes, go to therapy. If you say to anyone, I'm going to therapy, everyone looks at you like you're a bit nuts. What can we do to change that, you know, encourage people to go to therapy? You're going to the gym, you're going to the hairdresser, you're going to your gynecologist. Why should we not say, yes, go to your therapist, it's a good thing?
Because it's a hidden madness. And, you know, we're as a society, we've got used to this. What you don't see, you don't need to address. And because you can't see what's happening in the mind, we don't feel the need to address it, you know. And again, if you support somebody in terms of, yes, go for therapy, it means I must also address my issues. And I think that's, again, it comes back to the same thing, that am I going to start something?
Open a can of worms.
Absolutely, that I'm going to have to deal with, you know, later on. Take teenagers, for instance. A lot of them can do with it. You know, a lot of them need it and look for it.
Yes.
But the parents don't encourage them, because I think somewhere as a parent you know that the child will come back to you and say,
you did this.
This is where, this was your part,
Yeah.
you know. So it's scary, but I feel that it's something that needs to be addressed, especially because you see people trying to address issues, physical issues, that they will never deal with physically, you know. I'll give an example of somebody I know. So she came back from India and she had a flu. And then in a matter of 3 weeks, she started to lose some mobility on her left side.
Wow.
And in 6 weeks, she had gone to her cardiologist. They thought they had an issue. She's not able to walk. She could just about go to the bathroom, you know. She needed support to get to the washroom. They wheeled her to the doctor's office in 8 weeks, and they were getting ready to fly her out, when it just happened that her cardiologist from the UK had travelled to Nairobi. And when he saw her reports, and he says, this isn't the anomaly that she was born with, because she's born with it. This isn't what's doing this. So they thought, right, she might have had a stroke. So they took her in for a scan, and they found out, okay, it wasn't a stroke. And now, because they had exhausted every possible avenue, and I'd been saying to them, you know, maybe you should consider it now, last resort. You know, what do I do?
You.
Yes. Yeah. And in 1.5 hour session, her son was sitting there. This lady walked me to the front door of the house. And after the second session, she went grocery shopping.
Wow.
And can you imagine the cost implication, for example? And I'm not saying you don't need to. Absolutely, medical advice cannot be, you know, substituted in any way. But I think that because it's not one-sided, it has to have a multi-pronged approach, you know, for physical issues too, not just mental issues. And seeking therapy doesn't mean you're mental anyway, you know, which is the fear, I think, somewhere also. To get clubbed into this bracket, or there's something wrong with you.
Yes.
You know, addressing something doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means you have a lot more courage than most people do.
I think it is. It's the highest form of self-love.
Absolutely.
Yes. It's
Absolutely.
healing yourself, and
it is.
And finding yourself, learning who you are.
Correct.
And being able to.
And I think people need to do this not just for themselves, especially parents, because we pass down 90% of our genetic information to our children.
Yes.
As a mother, you pass it down. So your traumas, your experiences, you will pass down. You're literally downloading your experiences into your genetics. and you will download them into your children. And if you don't deal with it, then they will have to deal with it. And I just think it's only fair that you must carry your own cross. You know,
yes.
Why leave it with them?
Yeah,
absolutely.
And with that knowledge, because, you know, nowadays we do have that knowledge, so you're able to do something about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 2020, because of this global pandemic, you saw the cases of suicide rise.
Yes.
And what do you think that your role as a therapist is when it comes to educating people about how to control emotions in times of crisis?
I think first, this might not go as per popular beliefs. I think sometimes it's important to look at your physiology and your emotions and what's happening purely as they are. So I believe that emotions are just energy in motion. If it's moving in a certain direction, you have a certain spectrum of emotions, which are usually pleasant. If it's moving in a different direction, there's a different spectrum of emotions. And I know to a lot of people it feels like, you know, you're taking away the validation for what we're feeling, but that's not it. It's important to have that in the background of when you're going through your life, simply because there are times when there is a strong emotion. And if you don't have this anchor to say, right, I'm feeling a lot of this, but if you switch your modes, which is what our priority is, and this is what we do, our job is to just make sure we switch perspectives so that the experience of whatever it is changes for you. When you switch your thought process from this is happening to me, I'm feeling this, to this is an energy, now suddenly there's a power you have. Because if it's energy, you can do something about it. If it's an emotion and you're hurting, then you're at its mercy, you know, or worst case, in most cases actually, somebody else's mercy, isn't it? Because a lot of times when people are going through extreme emotion, it's because they feel it's been inflicted upon them, you know. So our role when it comes to things like suicide, especially when it's a severe case, our priority obviously is just so that, you know, they don't do anything.
Yes.
And it's just about empowering them slowly, you know, in what to do in a particular situation in that moment. Because we're only interested in this moment. What do we do for you not to take this action, you know? In the background, when you start to educate them slowly, you know, things like breath work, for example.
Yes.
If it wasn't for meditation and for my yogic practices, I think I would have been crazy by now, for sure, clinically too. So it's about, suicide is not just about that moment. Nobody commits suicide because something happened and they killed themselves. I feel suicide is something that you have been taught over time. You know, you have been taught it is okay to destroy yourself over and over. Suicide is the last straw, really, where you end it ultimately. But somewhere, you're taught it, aren't you? You're taught to, you know, choke your voice. You're taught to let your body go through what it's going through. I mean, don't we commit suicide on so many levels on a daily basis, you know?
That is profound, what you've just said, because we are taught to destroy ourselves.
Yes.
That is really, I mean, that's something that people need to allow to sink in, because it's true, it's our self-talk. How do we talk to ourselves?
Yes.
And on a constant basis, the things we're saying to ourselves are not very nice.
Yeah.
They're not nice.
And the worst thing I think that's happened is this assumption that has been offered to us via different situations or institutions, is that there is somewhere better to go to. But has anybody come back to say,
it's great?
Yeah, you know. And so this escapism has been taught to us. And whether you're looking at alcohol, I'm not against anything. I'm not saying do or don't do something. But if you look at it, it's happening in small doses everywhere in your life, you know. I don't want to talk to you. I'm not going to attend to this. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to drink it away. I'm going to, you know, weed it away, or whatever it is. And ultimately, what is suicide? It's just that, right, I'm going to do this, but now I'm going to do it once and for all, you know. And it's something that we need to teach our children. It's something that we need to educate people about that, okay. And I think now there's a lot of science coming up about life, about energy, what happens to the energy we refer to as life during the process of death, just a little bit after death. Because we're all going somewhere apparently when we're dead, but really, where are we going? Do we know?
Yeah.
You know? So it's, you know, it's a tricky thing, but I think it's just about teaching people that it's easier to face things sometimes, and the best way to do it is to just stop and look at it as, you know, go back to your basics and say, right, this is just an energy. You know, if it's feeling down, what can I do? Can I drink some water? Can I listen to something inspiring? A lot of times with clients, literally, you won't believe that's what I say to them. Find that one song that makes you want to dance. And as much as your mind's going to say, no, I want to listen to the most morbid song that I can relate to because my girlfriend stitched me or whatever it is, don't. Do exactly the opposite. And you find that something shifts, you know, because the mind wants to hold on to these things to keep its own identity, isn't it? So,
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting.
You brought up death, and I think it's a topic that a lot of people are very uncomfortable. I don't want to talk about death because we act like it's never going to happen to us, or, you know, it's a taboo. Again, it's a taboo topic. How should we embrace death in life?
I'm definitely not an authority in the field, but I do feel as a therapist that it's very important to address this idea of death. Because when you're born, the only guarantee you have is you're going to die.
Yeah.
That's the one thing we all know, right?
Yeah, it's sure.
Yes, that's the only sure thing that we do know of. Yet we never want to talk about it because I think somewhere we believe if we don't talk about it, it will not happen. It won't happen to us, it won't happen to our loved ones. And then when it does, we're that much less prepared for what happens, you know. And when I say that, I'm not saying that you shouldn't grieve, you know. Of course, death has its implications on the living. But I think it's very important to address death simply because it is one of the most profound experiences of a life in the end. And if you're not going to be there to address this most important question, a lot of people are scared of death. You know, what will happen to me? As a family, it's very important, or, you know, to offer that support to say, right, we will be here regardless of what and how it pans out. But you can't do that if you never want to talk about it, right? Because I can tell you from us, our social circle and things, it's always like, oh, why are we talking about this morbid thing?
Or do you want someone to die?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, you know, and I mean, Sadhguru released the death book, you know, that I've been distributing so freely to everybody. And people look at me like, what kind of a book is this? How can you give this to somebody? And I find that when you read it, you can live so much better because now you're okay with the whole concept of dying. Because it's almost like if you're really scared to fall, you will never get up and run. Because you're just constantly fixed on, what if I fall? What if I fall? But if you get over that, okay, so it won't be so bad if I fall.
Yeah.
Then you're going to get up and do what you need to do. And I think it's the same thing with life. If you look at death for what it really can be, then you find that people are a lot more willing to live. Because I find a lot of times we just exist, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. We're not fully living.
It takes courage to live. It's another reason we should go for therapy, I think, if you need it. Yeah, because to be alive means saying no. And we're taught not to say no. It's bad to say no. It's arrogant to say no, you know. Because to be alive, you've got to be true to your life, to your process, you know.
So this is where we unlearn.
Yes, I think so, for sure.
Yeah. You brought up Sadhguru. I know he makes a huge impact on your life.
Absolutely.
What is your favorite, if there is one? It's a difficult question, I know, because I follow him as well and I think he's amazing. But what is your favorite lesson by Sadhguru?
I heard him long before I even did the program saying that you need to cure this disease of trying to be good.
Okay. Expound.
And I found that the most liberating, because there was always a guilt attached to saying no,
Yes.
or to setting a boundary, often at your own expense. You know, you might be physically burnt, but you'll never say, no, yeah, it's fine, come over, whatever it is. And I think when he beat that somewhat out of me, it was so liberating, because you realize you can absolutely love somebody. You can absolutely, and you can say it out of complete love, to say,
No.
no, I'm not going to do it. And I found that liberating beyond words, to be honest.
So my husband the other day, I asked him, I said, could you do this for me? And he's very, like, he's always anything. And he's a very kind person. But he said to me, he's like, no. And I looked at him feeling very insulted. But I understood where he was coming from, because this is what I encourage people to do, right?
Yes.
So it's like, no, I'm not going to do it. And that was the end of that conversation. But how somebody responds to it,
Correct.
it's not your problem.
And you know, a lot of times you don't realize no is an option. We kill ourselves often in situations, and don't take that out of context. You know, we make situations much worse than they really can be or really are, simply because saying no or drawing a boundary is not an option for us, because we were never taught it, you know, in many ways. Of course, there's this concept of giving, but I think saying no is also giving. You know, saying no to somebody is giving them the opportunity to take their own power back. You know, do it yourself. There's nothing wrong with it, you know. Yes. So it's been, that particular thing has really stuck with me.
So we have to cure the disease of being good. Is that what it is?
Yes.
That's the lesson.
Mind you, as I've gone along, I've realized that you don't need to be good if you can be inclusive. Somehow you realize a lot of things are an extension. And if you can just go back to being you, you don't need to be good simply because you're just being authentic to what needs to happen in that moment, you know. And a lot of times it's, you know, that in itself is the solution. Because how often do we say things, or how often are we trying to be good but leads to resentment in the end?
Right. I did
Isn't
this,
it?
and they weren't even grateful.
Yes. You know, look at situations, look at our social structures. A lot of times you're trying to be the good wife or the good daughter-in-law or the good this or the good husband or whatever it might be. But you're going against your own grain.
Absolutely.
So it's causing so much friction inside your own system. And ultimately you find that there's so much resentment, or maybe, you know, you can't take it so well after that. So I think it's a great possibility, you know, and I never ever looked at it until then. Mind you, I never looked at anything the way I did after I came across it.
So bottom line, I think we all need therapy, because with therapy you get some sort of empowerment as well, that you can say no and feel nothing.
Yeah, I think it's just a way of sort of looking inside and saying, right, I want this, I don't want this.
Yes.
You know.
I know what I want. That's being very clear.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or, you know, just, and I say this often to people, that you might be in a relationship, you know, where you're hoping the other person will change, or, you know, you might be stuck in a situation where you cannot do away with somebody. And you can spend the rest of your life wishing them dead. Chances are they might outlive you. But if you change how you perceive the situation, then your whole experience of the situation changes, isn't it?
Yes.
When we're going through aggravation in our relationships and in our life, it's only because of how we're viewing it, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and if that changes, then the whole situation has changed, hasn't it? And that's all therapy really is. It's about rewiring yourself to look at things to your advantage. It's not taking advantage. It's just, if you can't do something about it, you know, can you shift how you look at it? Because now you can go through the same experience without the inner friction, without the turmoil that you go through otherwise.
So where can somebody find you if they're looking for unconventional ways of healing themselves?
So we're based at Spring Valley Business Park, Block D. We're called iReset. And we'll give out the contact details.
I'll also tag you for sure in this video. Krishma, thank you so much. I mean, this is a conversation you know that we can keep on, and I just think it's fascinating that you're able to offer this therapy in a world where I think a lot of people are becoming a bit more open to it.
Yes, it's definitely changed a lot from when we started. First,
Yeah.
it was reserved for abuse
So
and
like,
trauma.
yeah, okay.
Only it had to be life and death before
Yes.
people considered it. But I think it's great now. People are sort of saying,
Yeah.
I can't get my grades. I know I have it in me. Why? You know, small things, and it's
Yeah.
amazing because it's
Yeah.
just a small block. If you attend to it, it will just save all your plumbing from getting blocked
Messed up.
Yeah.
I like it. Krishma and I would love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of this unconventional therapy, what you think of death as well. I'd love to know your thoughts on that. Remember, you can win a phone from Safaricom. I'll make sure I link those details below. Thank you so much, Krishma, for being a
Thank
part of
you.
this show. Thank you for your time
Thank
and
you so
your
much for having me.
insight as well. And thank you as well for what you did for my mum. You
You're
know,
welcome.
I'm very, very grateful for that as well. I think it's very important. You don't know the role that you play in people's lives, so grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Pleasure.
much for watching, and remember, I always encourage you, especially in this season, to be brave. Learn to unlearn. We'll see you again real soon. Bye.